Tunde sat outside their one-room apartment in Ibadan, watching the sun set behind the rusted rooftops of their neighborhood. The air smelled of frying akara from a street vendor nearby, mingling with the distant aroma of roasting corn. It was a familiar scene, one he had watched countless times before. But tonight, everything felt different. He wasn't going back to school. His mother had broken the news just that morning, her voice heavy with sorrow. "Tunde, we can't afford it anymore. I tried, but the money is just not there." Tunde had seen it coming. His mother was a petty trader, selling vegetables at Bodija market. With his father gone and his younger brother, Sei, still in school, the burden had grown too heavy. But knowing didn't make it hurt any less. He had always dreamed of becoming an engineer, of building machines that could change lives. Now, that dream seemed to slip away like sand through his fingers. "You know fit just sit down like this," his best friend, Jide, said, snapping him out of his thoughts. Jide had come over after hearing the news. He was still in school, but he had always been Tunde's closest friend. "You need to do something." "Do what?" Tunde asked, bitterness creeping into his voice. "No school, no job, nothing." Jide sighed. "You sabi work. You sabi think. Find something." Tunde didn't reply. He just stared at the road ahead, his mind churning with frustration. But deep down, a small ember of determination began to flicker. He wasn't ready to accept defeat, not yet. That night, Tunde lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. His mother's voice drifted in from outside, talking to their neighbor about the rising cost of food. "How person go chop when everything don cost?" the neighbor complained. Tunde closed his eyes, his mind running through possibilities. He had to find a way to survive. He had to find a way to make money. And then, an idea began to form. Tomorrow, he would visit his old school. And maybe, just maybe, he would find his way back, not as a student, but as something else. Tunde woke up early the next morning, the idea from the night before still lingering in his mind. He wasn't sure if it would work, but he had to try. He walked Sei to school, his feet moving on familiar roads, past yellow-painted buildings, noisy roadside sellers, and tricycles weaving through traffic. The gates of his old school loomed ahead, stirring emotions he wasn't ready to face. As students poured in, Tunde noticed their usual complaints. The canteen food was too expensive, the portions too small. Some students rushed to buy from a woman selling puff-puffs and buns outside the school, but even her prices were high. That was when the idea hit him fully. What if I sell snacks, but cheaper? On his way home, he stopped by the market where his mother worked. "Mama, how much does flour and sugar cost?" he asked. She frowned. "What do you need it for?" "I want to start a small business," he said. "Selling snacks to students." His mother sighed. "It's not easy, Tunde." "I know," he said. "But I have to try." She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Let's see how we can start." That evening, she showed him how to mix dough for buns and fry them golden brown. By nightfall, Tunde had a small tray of fresh snacks. Tomorrow, he would begin. Tunde stood outside the school gate, his tray balanced carefully in his hands. At first, no one seemed to notice him. "Who be this one?" a boy laughed. But then, a classmate recognized him. "Tunde. Why you day sell buns?" Tunde swallowed his pride. "Try am. E sweet past the one for canteen." The boy hesitated, then bought one. His eyes widened. "E makes sense." Word spread. One by one, students began buying. By break time, he had sold half his tray. Then, trouble came. "Hey, you. You know fit sell here." It was a school security guard. "Nah, illegal." Tunde's heart pounded. He tried to explain, but the man chased him away. Frustrated, he stood near a corner down the road, hoping students would still find him. The day ended with fewer sales than he had hoped, but he wasn't giving up. Tunde's snacks became popular quickly, and soon, students were choosing him over the expensive school canteen. But not everyone was happy. The canteen owner, Madame Esther, saw her business declining. One morning, she called two boys and whispered to them. Moments later, the boys approached Tunde. "Your buns don't spoil," one of them announced loudly. "Ego give person stomach pain." Lies. But students hesitated. Sales dropped. Tunde knew he had to act fast. He approached his old home economics teacher, Mrs. Adeyemi, and asked her for advice. She not only reassured him but even tasted his snacks in front of students. "This is clean and well made," she declared. Sales bounced back, but Tunde realized something: business wasn't just about selling. It was also about protecting what you had built. Instead of staying outside the school gates, Tunde found another way. He got students to help. He asked his younger brother, Sei, and two friends to sell snacks inside the school for him. Now, instead of one person selling, four were selling. He also expanded his menu: chin-chin, plantain chips, and soft drinks. Money started flowing in. But success brought new dangers. One evening, a rough-looking man approached him. "You dey hustle well," the man said. "But if you want make 'em big, you go need protection." Tunde frowned. "Protection from what?" The man smirked. "From people way no want make you grow." Tunde knew what was happening. This was a gang, offering protection for a price. He refused. Days later, some of his snacks were stolen. A warning. But Tunde refused to be bullied. Instead, he started keeping his goods locked up and became more cautious. His determination grew stronger. In the middle of his rising business, something unexpected happened. Aisha, the most brilliant girl in school, started noticing him. "You work hard," she said one afternoon. Most people would have given up. Tunde smiled. "I don't have a choice." They became close. But Aisha's father disapproved. "You are a dropout," he told Tunde. "Stay away from my daughter." Tunde was hurt. Was he still just a dropout, despite everything he had achieved? But Aisha believed in him. And that was enough. Just when things were going well, disaster struck. A rumor spread that Tunde's snacks were unhygienic. Students started avoiding him. Then, the school officially banned him from selling. Everything he had built started crumbling. For the first time, he considered giving up. But his mother reminded him, "You didn't come this far to fail now." Tunde knew she was right. Instead of selling directly at school, he found a new strategy: wholesaling. He partnered with small vendors near other schools, providing them with snacks at a lower price so they could sell for profit. Within weeks, his business was thriving again, bigger than before. Even better, he got an official vendor's permit to sell outside several schools legally. The setback had made him stronger. Months later, Tunde stood outside his old school, watching students rush to buy his snacks from a licensed vendor. He was no longer just a dropout. He had built something real. He wasn't just selling snacks anymore, he was running a business. And as he held Aisha's hand and looked at the world ahead, he realized something important. True success wasn't just about money. It was about never giving up. Tunde sat in his small rented workspace, counting his earnings for the week. Business was booming, but something felt incomplete. Yes, he was making money. Yes, he had overcome obstacles. But was this all there was? One evening, as he walked through Bodija Market, he noticed a large bakery producing bread in bulk. The workers moved quickly, kneading, baking, and packaging. That was when it hit him: what if I owned a bakery? he no longer wanted to be just a snack seller. He wanted to be the supplier. But to do that, he needed a bigger plan. Tunde knew nothing about running a bakery, so he did the next best thing. He found someone who did. He met Baba Raji, an old baker known for the softest ajij bread in Ibadan. "I want to learn," Tunde said. "Teach me." At first, Baba Raji laughed. "You? A school dropout?" But after seeing Tunde's determination, he agreed. For months, Tunde worked at the bakery for free, waking up before dawn, covered in flour, sweating in the heat of the ovens. It was hard, but he was learning. With the knowledge he had gained, Tunde took a bold step. He invested his savings into a small oven and baking equipment. He didn't have enough money to rent a big shop, so he turned part of his mother's backyard into his bakery. At first, it was just him, Sei, and 2 hired workers. They started small, producing puff-puffs, chin-chin, and ajij bread. But Tunde wasn't selling in the market. He had a better idea. He supplied to the vendors who already sold his snacks. Sales tripled. But success always brought new enemies. Madame Esther, the school canteen owner, wasn't happy about Tunde's success. "You this boy, you too stubborn," she hissed. One evening, some of his delivery boys were attacked, their goods stolen. Tunde knew Madame Esther was behind it. But instead of fighting back, he found a smarter way. He undercut her prices. Soon, vendors stopped buying from her and bought directly from him. Within weeks, Madame Esther shut down her canteen. Tunde had won. As Tunde's business grew, his relationship with Aisha faced new struggles. She was in her final year, preparing for university, while he was running a business. "We're growing apart," she admitted one evening. Tunde knew she was right. They barely had time for each other anymore. "I don't want to lose you," he said. "Then fight for us," she replied. Love, like business, needed effort. And Tunde wasn't ready to let go. One day, Tunde met an old schoolmate, Deo, who now worked at a supermarket chain. "You bake?" Deo asked. "Yes," Tunde replied. Deo introduced him to a supermarket owner who agreed to stock Tunde's bread, if he could meet demand. It was a huge opportunity. But it also meant one thing: Tunde needed a real bakery. Tunde had never considered taking a loan, but he knew he couldn't expand without funding. So, he gathered all his business records and walked into a bank. The bank manager, surprised by his determination, approved a small loan. With the money, Tunde rented a proper bakery and bought bigger ovens. Now, he wasn't just a schoolyard seller. He was a bakery owner. Despite his growth, Tunde felt something missing. His business consumed all his time, and Aisha was now away at university. Late at night, he stared at his phone, tempted to call her. But what would he say? "I miss you?" Instead, he focused on work. But even success couldn't fill the empty space in his heart. One day, while passing his old school, Tunde saw a boy selling water sachets. The boy reminded him of himself. Tunde called him over. "How much do you make in a day?" The boy shrugged. "Not much." Tunde smiled. "How would you like to work for me instead?" That day, he made a decision. He would start a program to help young entrepreneurs like himself. He had made it. Now, it was time to help others. Years later, Tunde stood in front of a building with his name on it, Tunde Bakes Ltd. He had gone from selling snacks on the street to owning a company. Aisha stood beside him, holding his hand. "You never gave up," she whispered. Tunde smiled. Because in the end, true success wasn't just about money. It was about growth, love, and never losing sight of the dream.